The sound in all longevity practices, there are two main areas that you focus on, the throat and the heart. Now, the practice I'm going to give you was given to me in several different versions. There are minor differences between them, usually the length. Now, what I'm going to do is give you one version that kind of puts everything in one place. And I'll review the points for you because it's very simple, but you have to do it. The other thing is how you start out is very important. I want to emphasize this. What we do is you have to first imagine your body as clear and light, brilliant and light. You can imagine it white or crystal. Crystal's better because that's really what we have. Crystal is clear, not white. Okay? But this crystalline clarity, it must be light, not dense, not heavy. Okay? The reasons being, this is the energetic body that we're working on. This is our energetic body. And our energetic body is both formed and shaped by our thoughts and our emotions. Okay. And then from that, it affects the nerves and the channels. And then from that, it affects the nerve in the body, the physical body. So we have to really understand what is our purpose for undertaking this practice. Now, of course, I could write out a practice script for you if you wanted to, complete with prayers, but that's not the way I got it. But I could do that for you. That's fine. But you can do your own here. Find the prayer, that is essentially signifies the nature of why you do this. You're doing this practice to strengthen and heal the body, for longevity, to create the body of light, and to do so with the intention of achieving illumination for yourself and to help others. That would be the ultimate reason. Now, of course, you could do this exercise simply for the purpose of health and longevity. Or you could just do it for health and longevity and to create the body of light for your own illumination. But remember, how you relate to others and how you relate to the environment around you is going to have some impact on the outcomes here. Essentially, if you're going to be helpful to me, it's going to be a lot easier for me to want to be helpful to you, right? When people are nice to you, it's easier to be nice to them, right? Like you had students who worked on that project for you. They got benefits out of it. This was something fun and exciting, and yet you got machinery that you wanted. It's a mutually beneficial relationship, Everyone walks away happy. And that's what we think of as a healthy relationship, where everybody gets something out of it. And that's what we talked about earlier. What is love? Love is right relationships. It's not always squishy, huggy, feely. It's about, what's the proper relationship here for everyone? Okay? So, of course, we want love in this case to be incredibly joyful and incredibly blissful and unattached to anything in particular, but realizing that it in and of itself is the nature of life. Life in itself is inherently joyful if we let it be. Okay, we get out of our own way. This clarity of visualizing yourself is very important because if you don't do this, and you only do the steps that follow, and you focus on these points in your body as if you're focusing on physical points in your body, or you're not clear that this is the energy body you're working on, you will still get results, but they will not be the kind you exactly as good as they could be. And in some instances, you do run the risk at one point of really getting some really good headaches out of it. So I'm assuming you don't want that. The rest of it, there won't be any negative side effects, but the one step, you could really get some serious headaches if you're not clear on what's going on, how the energy is moving. The sound that we use is the sound ah. A-H, ah. Remember, we often associate this with air, with movement, with the primordial sound itself, the first sound of movement. Where does this sound movement from? But it moves out of what? Where does it move out of? Right, but where does it move out of? It moves out of the abyss, out of emptiness. Okay, out of the Ein Sof R. Okay, the void. So we have to always focus, begin our prayers recognizing the essential changeability of nature, that essential underlying void, if you will, that we call it spirit, like in the Golden Dawn, that spirit thing, but that has to be understood as the inherent primordial changeability of things. The inherent primordial changeability of things, that things are not fixed and permanent, but can be shaped and molded and are constantly doing so. There's a constant motion involved here. Just as I'm talking and you're listening and our hearts are pumping and our bowels are processing lunch, there's constant motion. It's not like fixed. So we have to recognize this, because without this permeability, this changeability, we can't affect anything. Do you understand? We have to have a sense of changeability, and that our thoughts and our words and our actions can direct that change. If we don't have that, then what are we doing this for? It won't make sense. So your philosophical foundation at the beginning of every practice is critical, that you understand what that underlying philosophy is and why you're doing it. And the philosophy is first perception of the cosmos, perception of your place in the cosmos, perception of your relationship to others in the cosmos. And that's both us as physical beings that we interact with, but also invisible beings. Okay? Remember, it's very layered. So, we focus on this notion of our body is crystal clear. It's not really a physical body, but it's a body of energy. And that our physical body really is just an extension of it. Oh, my shirt's coming out here. That's an extension of it. And that really that's what we have to begin to think of. The physical world is an extension of the spiritual or the mental world. I don't even like the word spiritual. I like the word mental, and then from that spiritual meaning energetic. Okay? And we relax. We have to learn to relax. And that's what Rigardi goes over very well in the 1-year manual or the 12 steps to enlightenment. How to relax and how to breathe. Okay? So you relax and you breathe, and you slow down, and you focus your attention on your throat. Now, again, the whole nature here is that everything around you is changing. It exists in this sea of possibilities. That your body is a focalization of that. Your mind even is a focalization of that sea of possibilities. And that from that arise various energies. And we know those energies as what? Earth, air, fire, water. And that you focus on your throat and you visualize there a brilliant red sphere about the size of a marble, but very brilliant. That is, if I were to see it, because my body is crystal clear, it would actually radiate out like a neon light, or what are those, those bright Christmas tree lights? What are they, the little LED lights, like a nice LED light, like that, very much so. Because, it's bright at the center, but it still has that little radiance around, the little aura around it. But here you want it big, okay? The thing is small, but the radiance is big. And then you just hold that, and you want to be in it. You don't want to be looking at it. You want to be in the center of it. Okay? And then you would intone, all. Just rest in that point, feeling the warmth, generating the warmth with your mind, feeling it move out, and knowing that warmth is life itself, and that this practice strengthens your life force, transforms illness into life, into health. It strengthens the psychic anatomy and nervous system. Let it flow through you even if you like, filling your whole body. There's a radiant translucent body with that light. But you still stay seated there, but you can let it flow out. Because from the center point from which it is, from where the ah sound comes, that motion, that smoothing, energizing ah, or the primordial sound, there's unlimited energy and potential. And you can just say it 3 times, or you can say it 7, or you can do cycles of 3 and 3 and 3. But feel the warmth and allow it to build. And you do that for about 3 to 5 minutes. And then we move down to the heart. Again, the area of the heart. And we see that warmth, that sphere of light, that ball of light formulate in the area of the heart, doing the same. Now, some people will leave it just as that. Others will actually kind of visualize the energy body around their heart, like particularly the pericardic sac. And they will tend to feel the life energy of this light radiating into that sac, into that area around the heart. So if you want to, you can briefly allow the image of your physical heart to arise in the center of this crystalline body, just like in the Visible Man models, you can see the organs. But here it would just be the kind of shadowy imprint of the heart and the sac around it. And as you say the sounds again, always breathe deep, deep. One more time, breathe deep. Very good. And you want to feel the energy in the heart as you say it there, just as you felt it in the throat. You just feel it radiate out. You may want to spend briefly some special attention to that area around the heart, strengthening it, encouraging it, brilliant, vital, strong, youthful, in all that, every way that means, courageous. And then you can let that image of the heart go after a minute or two, and just feel the energy radiate out, filling the chest and the rest of the body. Again, your focal point is in the center of the sphere, not looking down at it or up at it or out at it or in at it, but from that focal point. From this endless sea of energy arises the small sphere. Sphere of brilliant light, and has brilliant energy within it, an endless amount of energy within the sphere. And the sound of awe, the energies of air, the psychic energies which move in creation, the primordial sound moves that energy. And that energy is everything and nothing in particular. That energy is light, That energy is life. That energy is love. And feel those three ideas. Build them individually and then combine them and recombine them until you can allow them to arise spontaneously and uniquely as one at each center, the throat, at the heart. And now move the energy down to the solar plexus. And by the solar plexus, I mean the area between the navel and the sternum. It is in the stomach region. And move it down there. Let the sphere drop down, or a new one form. It's as if you were looking up, really. Could see three small spheres, one at each point. Your body, of course, is crystalline and hollow, and filled with this brilliant reddish light, too. It's radiating through it, coursing through it, and around it as it permeates outward, maybe even widely outward. And there at the solar plexus, in, just rest in that spot, allow that energy to radiate out, concentrating your mind on the nature of it. It's light, it's brilliant, it is warmth, it is fire, it is life, it is love. Soothing and healing, strengthening the entire nervous system of your body, visible and invisible, providing it with life, and vitality, and strength. And even just more than that, transforming it, transforming the physical body ever so slowly and ever so appropriately into that body of light, where the elements are understood in their primordial nature for what they are. Because it is your goal to achieve that body of light in this very lifetime. You know that this has been done. It is being done now, and will be done in the future. This is the transformation of your physical elements into the Philosopher's Stone. And then when you're done, you can carry on with whatever other meditative work you were doing. Or say a prayer, give thanks, and that's it. Now that's the most basic version of this. Fundamentals, bare bones. That's it. And that'll get you far. When I would discuss this with other folks, they would say, well, the solar plexus is good, but the area of the navel is better. I understood that. I know what they meant. So some would actually add that in as well, or they would replace it. Because in some of the yoga texts, they refer to the solar plexus. They don't mean here. They mean here. So they say there's some maybe confusion. Because in our body, this is where the greatest magical and transmutative energy takes place, is down here. So I'm okay with you moving it down. What I think probably happened is that was maybe a little too much for some folks, so they moved it up. That's my guess. That happened a lot in the late 19th, early 20th century. They shifted a lot of things around, okay, to keep from having too much of a jag off of it. So I'm okay with you moving it down here. In fact, you'll actually feel a good bit of warmth. Did any of you get any of the warmy tinglies? Yeah, in your hands too, in the palms? Yeah. Right. Yeah, well, you do it down here, you actually feel a ring of fire around the navel if you do it properly.
Will this be accompanied probably by shaking?
Hopefully not.
No shaking?
Well, you shouldn't. You know, if you're shaking, that's detoxing, essentially. Okay. So you want to avoid that. And if you have it, that's okay. Let it go. Just let it happen and be done with it.
What about images that you can see in your mind?
Every time you do any operation or any work, it will have a stimulative effect on the unconscious mind because that's where you're operating. So, of course, images will arise. What you do is you simply let them go. You note them down for future reference. They may or may not be important, but they're probably not. Okay? If they happen real early on, they might be important because that's like your mind is finally just kind of, while you're popping in the door, it's saying, hey, by the way, get some milk. You know, it's that kind of thing. It's a opportunistic communication. But it's probably, most of the time, it seems to be unimportant. Just stay focused on this work. Now, the next part was what to do with the pineal gland. Because that was an important one, and some would add it in and some wouldn't, because it wasn't in the original. Others would say, yeah, but it's really critical because it's the master gland. I think it's important to add it in. The question is, do you do it at the beginning or at the end? So, I said put it in at the end. So you go from the throat to the heart to the solar plexus or the navel. You can even do solar plexus and then navel if you want to gradually move yourself into it. Because some people, I'm surprised. I mean, I don't respond. I respond well to most practices. But some people really respond poorly to the energetic rush that can occur. I mean, we've seen that. You know, I don't. You know, but I don't know. You have to guide. So I'm telling you, you can do them gradually. Instead of doing 1, 2, 3, you can do 1, 2, 3, and then like 3, 4, if you want to kind of move it down, just to generally open the channels and the psychic channels there to gradually put them in. I'm okay with that. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't, just saying that's an option. But then once you're done, once you've then moved from the navel, then you move your attention back up here to the middle of your head, to where the pineal gland is. And this is why your head has to be visualized as a clear, luminous vessel. Because if you don't do this, you will probably get headaches. Okay. Now, when you do this, and we'll do it now, okay, since you're there, I want you to just visualize again your body in that way. And now visualize those 3 points. And just the body filled with this luminous, brilliant red light. And it's warm. And you're at your navel. Focus your attention there. Just a sphere, and all this radiant light is moving off of it, filling your whole body. And now move it straight up. Move as if you're moving straight up to the center of your head. Tilt your neck. Make sure your chin is level. And there in the center of your head, because it's clear, is another empty spot. Visualize the sphere. And say and intone the sound. Now visualize that point again as a brilliant red light. Sometimes it's also with kind of a reddish purple. As remember, I mentioned to you earlier that sometimes a stone has different colors. Sometimes a little purplish tint to it. But you want to visualize it there. It's brilliant red or reddish purple light radiating out. You want to feel as though it's moving through your body, though. Through every area of your body. That even though you're visualizing your body as light, that if you were to visualize the organs and you visualize them as light, or the nervous system, or just the psychic channels, whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you're doing, that you'd visualize this light moving all the way through them, reviving, regenerating, rejuvenating, everything in its most perfect, healthy form. Think of a time in your life when you're at perfect health, perfect vitality, perfect strength, and hold on to that as that energy moves out from there, filling your body. And again, this is not just of a physical nature in the sense of physical well-being, but emotional well-being and psychic well-being. You may not be able to do all ideas at once. That's okay. Take your time. Build them. Change them for different sessions. But the psychic well-being, the ability to reach out and feel at one or harmonious or in tune with all the things that are going on around you in the visible and the invisible worlds. What would that mean? What would that be like? Feel a sense of everything is okay. Everything is as it should be, as it could be, as it wants to be, as it is. Everything is good. Everything is happy. And feel that radiate out through you, permeating you, reaching beyond you even. As it pushes and reaches beyond you, you may even find yourself relaxing, even more so, and kind of losing awareness of your environment. Or you may find yourself even more attuned to the sounds of the birds and the motorcycles, and the wind, and realize how refreshing that is. Just allow the energy to flow all the way through you, down to your feet, palms, everywhere, out, around you. Just allow yourself to rest in it. This is the energy of life. Remind yourself of that. This is life. Life. Now, as you do this, you know that the energies of the pineal gland and the nearby pituitary are also activated, and that the hormones that they produce affect the bloodstream and the whole physical body as a whole. So all of these thoughts have an effect on our physical structure. Our physical structure, we have to recognize, is not an independent entity, but is an extension or expression of our thought, our word, and our action. We have to think of it more and more not as a thing like a cloak that we put on and take off, or a car, but as a visible, tangible expression of our thoughts, our words, and our actions. Okay, when you're done, offer up a prayer of thanks, or just sit there for a while and enjoy the meditation. Okay. Now, when you do this, remember, this is the very, very short version. Okay? You have to make sure you follow all those steps. And more importantly, you have to make sure you pay attention to the philosophical foundations that the steps are based on. Otherwise, it runs the risk of just being reduced to a meditation on areas of the body or some generic psychic center thing. You have to understand the transformative power that is being cultivated. Okay? I mean, you'll get benefits, otherwise you will. But if you understand the beginning, the middle, and the end of the thing, we shorten the learning curve. Okay? And you can have that in front of you. Make it in red. And just figure it out for yourself. Let me know if you figure it out. You can email me if you think you figured out what it means. It's not quite D. It's close, but not quite D. There's a different meaning. See, same thing can have different meanings. So,
True.
Yeah. Of course it's true. I said it. Now, when you're focusing on your head, who got little buzzy feelings on your temples? Okay, who got little buzzy feelings on the front and back? Okay, who got a little buzzy feeling right in the center as if their corpus callosum were vibrating? In your nose, you get the nose thing? You get the vibration in your nose? Good. Okay.
I had like the top.
I had like all of them going
Right.
on at the same time.
Yeah, and it will, because a harmonic resonance is developed. Particularly, you're going to find when you on the solar plexus or the navel, but the solar plexus in particular is going to create a resonance up here.
Yeah.
The same with the heart. The heart will do it too, but more from the breathing, because there's a pulse that takes place in your brain as a result of the breathing patterns. Actually, where the brain waves go out, they hit, they come back, they got to come back. But you're going to feel a definite, when you focus on your solar plexus or the navel for a while, you're going to find a definite course. It's like two ends of a string pulled tight. You'll feel something up here. That's good, but what you don't want it to become painful. That's why you have to make sure that the energy moves out. That's why the idea is that the head is clear. Everything is clear and luminous.
I started to get a pain here, but as soon as I
Yeah, and that's your left side.
my clear
Yeah, right
head,
here. Because the aura tends to expend outward on that side for some reason, on the left, right here. What'll happen is, it's right here, right center. And that's good. It's good that you sense it, but now you have to remember, the idea here is we're overcoming obstacles, and a lot of people think of their heads as a black void, or just still it's like the center of their head. They haven't really gotten into the notion here that this is an energetic field we're dealing with. We're dealing with the energy structures. So, again, what we bring to it is going to change it. So you want to focus on that. And this is a practice you want to do. The other practice that is extremely important is, and I know people who did this practice quite often for a while, and they were quite in good health for a very long time. And they're in very good shape. One of the ways they say you judge someone's age is by their skin. And I think there's some truth to that. Is not only the quality of it in terms of clarity, but also the tensile strength of it, how strong it is. And these folks always had pretty good skin. It was very clear, and even when they were in their 90s, sometimes it would be a little saggy, but who wouldn't be at that point, except a super duper alchemist. And they were in good health and good shape and good mind up until the end. So I've seen the benefits of this. The next aspect, or different version of it,
It's funny, during the 40th day, there's aspects of that in that I noticed.
The feelings, the same sensations.
Yeah, but I also noticed my skin radically changed.
Yeah.
That was incredible.
Yeah, the glowing stuff, yeah. Because the channels are air. Remember, it has to do with that has a lot to do with a lot of things like skin, kidneys, air, all these channel relationships. But this is the short version of it. Psychic channels are the air channels in the body. We've got to keep those clean and healthy, which is why you've got to stop smoking because it's bad for you. In fact, tobacco smoking, and most things that one would smoke recreationally are pretty bad for the channels. You know. That's not to say they don't have some use, but that's not the way we're using them. So, if you're doing it, stop it. It's counterproductive. As we said, we have the elements. The elements consist of earth, air, fire, and water, but where do they come from? They come from the void, which is acacia, which is space, which we call mind. And out of that mind, where the elements arise, and we see them in the physical world around us, and they're in us right now. Our bones and flesh are earth, our bloodstream and various fluids are water, the nervous system and lungs are air, and the very warmth that says we are alive is fire. But even with that, we still have cavities within us. There are cavities in the body which allow space or spaces, and this is the potentiality of arising within the body. So what we want to do is overcome the sense of separateness between my physical senses here, or elements here, and those elements out there, because they both come from the same place, if you want to call it place. They come from the same, arise from the same conditions. Well, how do we do that? We use air, because air is all pervasive. The life energy is all pervasive, right? It's everywhere. So this all-pervasive life energy is constantly something we're breathing. If we cease to breathe for 3 minutes, we know what happens, right? So the rhythm of our breathing, as we said, can affects our consciousness. We know that. Breathe slow and deep, you're relaxed. Breathe short and heavy, you're anxious, and all sorts of things in between. Learn to control the breath, you learn to control the mind. Learn to control the mind, you can learn to control the various elements or aspects that make up the mind and body. It's that simple. Now those aspects that we do here, we breathe them in through color, because we associate colors with the different elements, but you don't have to use color. If you're very good at really getting a sense, and that includes a visceral, imaginative sense of what those elements are like, which is particularly easy for some of us, you can use that instead. You don't have to use the colors. But we believe that the colors arose first in the primordial void. You know, colors, sounds, and then forms, and then dense things. But if we have a sense of something, meaning I really have a visceral sense of what clean air and pure air is like, you know, that may be better for me to imagine than yellow or green. Because the colors we use are not universal. You know, Paracelsus gave green as the color for water, blue as the color for earth, and it's kind of a steel blue, by the way. Red for fire, and yellow for air, and white for the void. Okay? Spirit. The Golden Dawn gave blue for water, green, and this is a later variation, by the way, green or for earth, red for fire, and yellow for air, and white and sometimes black, depending on active passive, for spirit. In Indian and Tibetan, it's white for water, gold for earth, red for fire, green for air, and blue usually, although there's some instances where that's different. And it's a bluish black, by the way, for space. So we know that these colors are
Subjective.
yeah. They represent experiences. I mean, white's a perfect one for water because water is really white. It's not blue. You know, it's that fast-moving water. But, you know. Green is great for air because green things grow. In fact, I had a fellow wants to donate a huge stained glass rosy cross that he made, in which one of the fellows who, highly respected person, was explaining to him the differences between that version and the Golden Dawn version, and why he would, and why to change the colors on some of it. It's just, you know, a matter of perspective. And and this is what I was saying about the different alchemical manuscripts. You often have to look at what is the perspective of the author rather than what you think is in it. You know, trying to understand their viewpoint as you move forward will be very difficult. So I'm going to give you, you know, those of you who are familiar with the Golden Dawn colors and you want to use those, fine. Those of you who want to use the colors of Paracelsus, fine. I don't care. If you don't and you just want to use the quality that they represent, that's fine as well. So here, the first thing we do is we relax. Again, we remember that everything arises out of the void. Call it what you want. The Ein Sof Ar, emptiness, the void, the original chaos, the primordial dragon. Imagine it. Everything comes from this. And dissolves back to it. That's why when you're doing visualizations, you often visualize things coming out of it and then dissolving back into it, because that's the natural cycle. Now here your body is the void as well. It's empty. It has nothing to obstruct. That's the way you want to imagine. The body has nothing to obstruct. Everything moves freely and perfectly through it. And even though you're imagining your physical body here, you're still imagining the physical, healthy body as free of obstruction. Do you understand? Now first what you do is you want to breathe in water. You can imagine this any way you want. You breathe in water. Imagine that you're pulling the primordial, pristine waters. And we all know what that smells like, especially with a fresh running water. Imagine it. Remember it. You know what it smells like. Bring it up. You're pulling that pristine, pure running water from across the world, from across the universe, into your nostrils and into your body. And as you do that, it enters into the bloodstream, purifies all the areas of blood, all the areas of liquid in the body. And you may even feel your whole body filled up with it. That's okay. That's fine. Everything. And what happens to any obscurations or toxicity or disease? It just dissolves. Poof, it just disappears. It goes away. Doesn't have to go anywhere because it just goes back. Boom, gone. Like is known by like. The pure energies automatically transform the impure energies, returning them to their natural state of purity. But remember here to focus on the blood. Or excretion, areas of excretion too. Circulation, lymph, all those running areas. Feel that pure water just move in. Refreshing. And do this for what? 3, 4, 5 minutes? As long as you like. And now breathe in the energies of earth, as if you're drawing your strength from the vast mountains. And this is going deep into the bones and muscle. Again, it goes deep into the bones, the muscle, deep strength of the mountains. Any weakness is just dissolved, transformed. And again, do this for 3, 4, 5 minutes. And now fire. Breathe in fire and have it settle in your belly. You can do it in the heart as well, but really the belly is where we feel our warmth. That's where our body core warmth is. Have it radiate out through the whole body. Draw this fire from the deep volcanoes of the earth. Those spots on the earth where the sun hits hardest. All the fiery ranges. Pull the fire from there. As if it's coming through that very door, right into your nostrils, from the distant reaches of the earth. As it settles down in your navel center, it radiates out through the whole body like a giant flame. Burning away all impurities. And as they burn away, it flames even brighter. In fact, it relishes the impurities. They grow even brighter. Flames even hotter. And do this for 3, 4, 5 minutes. And now breathe in air. Clean air from distant mountaintops, refreshing fields. Feel it move into the lungs, into all of your psychic channels, your nervous system, lungs, filling them with strength. And to draw that air in, as if you're pulling it off the mountains, as if you're pulling it off the fields, areas where the air blows fresh and clean. Do this for 3, 4, 5 minutes. And now we fill ourselves with spirit, or mind, that all-encompassing void of potentiality. It gives rise to all potentiality, all things. And we pull that in, and we fill the areas, the empty cavities with our body. And if you don't know where those are, that's fine. You can feel the psychic channel, the central channel, in particular the middle pillar, luminous, clear, and bright. You can see the 2 side pillar channels, luminous, clear, and bright. They can be close together, far apart, it doesn't matter. All you have to do is breathe in space, mind, all potentiality. vastness, openness. Sky, space. And do this for 3, 4, 5 minutes, and then just relax in it. Remembering that the purpose of this is to strengthen the body, bring health and vitality to it, and to transform the elements from their gross nature back into their subtle nature for the realization of the body of light or the philosopher's stone in this very lifetime. Now, it's important to note that in our practice, and I know this is an advanced class, but I will reiterate this anyhow, as I will quote Julius Evola, it is necessary to establish a rhythm, in other words, to present a concept periodically and rhythmically to one's consciousness, and to grasp it willingly, not only as a thought, but as a feeling. The contemplation of one's being and of the world in a manner that we have described generates a sense of greatness and power. We must retain this sense within us in order to be intensely penetrated by it. Then after some time, a new condition will arise. What was first a mere concept will become a presence of a force, and a state of liberation will be reached, on which a new life may be built. All the exercises of inner development will be paralyzed unless one breaks the shell of limitation that daily life forms around us, and that still remains in the human subconscious, even after a change of perspective. We have to break the shell of habituated patterns, being open. We have to penetrate ourselves with the ideas, and the ideas are done rhythmically and regularly with a practice. But it's not enough just to practice and to generate the idea. We have to allow it to sink in and to generate a feeling and let that feeling carry us. Doesn't matter what it is. I don't care what you're doing. That has to happen. Because when that happens, then we begin to have a change in action. Right? You know, I talk to folks all the time. You know, everybody I know is some kind of therapist or nurse or health practitioner of some kind. You know, and it's all the same story. People want X, but they don't want to do Y and Z. You know? You got to put the bag of chips down. You got to know, okay, it's good to have ice cream. Haagen-Dazs is real yummy. You got to buy the small container. If you feel you must finish the container, buy the real small one. You know? Same way with everything else. Doesn't matter. How many times don't we say we feel people go out and meditate? But then they don't really let it sink in. You know, when life presents them with the chance to actually use the tool they've been learning, the tool's back at home on their meditation bench or on their altar. Because they think that crystal or that rock or that feather's their tool. Yeah. That's.
I meant that in a good way.
Yeah, I know. I have a few words about it that aren't in a good way, but they're funny. So, you know, and that said, you know, so we have to then utilize it. You know, we have to then practice, and practice is in life, not really, you know, when we're meditating or doing ritual work, yeah, that's practice, but that's really like the warm-up to the race. The real race is day-to-day stuff. And that's why you guys are saying why, you know, the year was so sucky and why so many people drop out of this stuff is because, you know, they're initiating change. And when I say change, I mean in a good way, because change in and of itself isn't inherently good, it's just change. Okay? When they do that, they realize things get up and down. You know? And a lot of it becomes projection. They begin to look at others. You know, the big joke of Dharma divorces, you know. Yeah, that's only because you can afford it. You know, the reality is that when you stir all this stuff up, what happens is a lot of unpleasantries get stirred up with it. That's why, you know, people will have nightmares or uneasiness or a whole bunch of stuff that occurs. And they don't really understand it because they were told everything was going to be bright and happy and bunnies and unicorns. And it's not. So you got to know that this is okay, that this stirring up is okay, because now what was below the threshold of consciousness is now above the threshold of consciousness. So now you know what you're dealing with and you can let it go. The best thing is just to let it go. That's okay, let it go. Be relaxed, let it go. Okay, so you feel this way about that person in that way. Okay, let it go. Who cares? It's not a big deal. The problems come in is when we cling to these feelings, either cling to them negatively or cling to them, well, you know, any clinging is negative, but where we feel guilty, or we think we should feel this way, or we pride ourselves on feeling, oh, I never feel a negative emotion. I don't. I do. I just try not to worry about it. You know? Not the fact that you're irritated that is the problem. That's not the problem. The irritation is telling you something important. The problem is when you either feel guilty about it or you act on it poorly. Same thing with feeling happy and joyful. That's a great thing. The problem is when you try to hold on to it all the time. Yeah, every hour. You can't. It's going to come and go, and that's okay. It comes and goes. That's okay. It's just the way life is. It's like your chocolate, man. It's beautiful, but we got to eat it. And how long does it really stay in our mouth for? But how long does the memory of great... That's right. But you see, that's the irony, though, isn't it? All this work goes into making it. It's really not even on the person's taste buds for that long. So the actual joy of the experience has almost nothing to do with the actual physical moment of eating, but with all that great sugar rush and the great sensation that came from it that's afterwards. You know? It's like anything else.
Plus the chocolate, does that stimulate some sort of...
Well, and some great hormonal release too. But you see, that's part of the benefit, the hidden benefit.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's interesting that, you know, a lot of the things which we believe to be so important are not what actually happened, but are either leading up to it, like the anxiety leading up to something like stage fright. You know? Well, you know that. Yeah, but then, you know what I used to tell myself? You know, prior to that presentation I gave at the academy, you know, I wasn't that concerned. And I said, that's not good. I should be a little more anxious about this. Because not being good means I'm not really putting anything into it. So I got myself into a state of appropriate anxiety. Okay?
So you had the motivation.
Right. And that appropriate anxiety was just enough where I thought, you know, oh, man, I could really screw the pooch on this, man. I could tank this. And I said, well, that's good. Now I'm anxious enough where I know I'm paying attention. You know? And then, of course, I get up there, and I just, it goes away, and I gotta tell you, I gave a knockout performance. But I couldn't have given that knockout performance if I didn't get myself into the appropriate state of energetic awareness, which is what anxiety is.
Tension release.
Yeah, you gotta have that. You gotta have that. You gotta be concerned about the outcome. And, right, that's where that's okay, you see? Because these energies are moving through us all the time. And I bring this up because this doesn't just have to do, everything is interrelated. Remember what I said earlier, you missed this part, but this is important. Body, speech, and mind. You know, I've sinned in thought, word, and deed. Well, sinning is making a mistake. That means you can also bring things back together through congruity in thought, word, and deed. And this thought, word, and deed is interconnected. So when we start working on these practices, we think it's just going to be in the thought, but no, it's in the body. Well, we think, well, you know, this is the body. I'm just going to move some energy around, and I'm going to be healthy about it. Well, no, what's going to happen is these tensions, which are somatized, are going to bring up all sorts of psychological stuff, and that's okay. The best way is to let it go. You know, if something really important happens, let me know, but the best way is just to let it go. You know, we were talking about Kundalini phenomenon. Most of that is attention getting seeking behavior. It's the body detoxing itself, psychic body detoxing. And that's okay, you just let it go, don't hang on to it. Now what we're doing here is we're transferring or transmuting our perceptions of ourselves. We're transmuting our perceptions of ourselves away from the physical body as the reality, as to our subtle body as the reality, which means we're also moving to the transformation of the subtle nature of nature being the reality, and the physical the expression of it. We're trying to work on causes, not effects. See, we look at our physical body as the cause, and then our attitudes and our emotions and our feelings as the effect. No, that's not the way it works. It works in reverse. Our subtle body is the cause, and then our physical body and the physical world we work in is the effect. And we have to constantly be shifting that perspective back. The way we do this is to descend into the silence, and this is the silence of the heart. And having realized to try to experience your own body and especially your imaginative faculties as functions of the self, detached from the deep reality of being, though not free, but rather as completely dominated. This act of the spirit should reach such perfection that when it is actualized, it should not even slightly affect the state of silence. Thus, it should not cause the spirit to regress to a more normal or more material level of consciousness. What we're saying here is relax and recognize that images will arise, that we can control these images through visualization. But at the same time, we don't have to. That anything that arises does not affect our meditation. This is very important to get to. That's what you need to work on for the lucid dreaming. That's why people, they're dreaming, they recognize they're dreaming, they're right on the edge of being aware of it, and then they wake up. Because they don't, that's fine, such a fine edge, where you have to be able to not allow, you have to, and this is where the meditation, as we talked in the previous classes, the meditation, the dream work, the day work, all this is part of a cycle of activity. That the practices we're talking about today just exacerbate. They expand and stimulate, make more potent. Okay? Today's class is really adding the high octane to the engine. Okay. One of the things they say to do is, and this is one practice from an Italian school, which is very good. But remember, this practice is not complex, but what it requires is the proper framework of mind. Okay? And they would say to go out into this environment, not the graveyard, but maybe because the environments are different. They have energies. You go to like the park over here near the lake where the breezes are nice, where the energies are lifting up and good. And there you would fix the air in your lungs and feel it permeate your blood and body as if you had a body made of luminous mobility. Write that down. A simple practice like that is very, very strong, because what it does is it takes those previous two that we just did and condenses them down into a single breath. It collapses them down.
Could you repeat that?
Fix the air in your lungs and feel it permeate your blood and body as if you had a body made of luminous mobility. Fix the air into your lungs and feel it permeate your blood and body as if you had a body made of luminous mobility. Now, I don't have time to go over everything. We still have so much work to do just on the ritual magic section. But let me say we have some of the printed notes here that you can get to. And let us focus on this. Always remind yourself that you are not a material thing. You must transfer your sensory capacities or capabilities to the psychic body. And you do that by filling your body with light, sensing your body with light, sensing the area around you, and then allowing yourself to open up to the light around people and things, auras. And as you begin to do that, you begin to trust your senses. Now, using the doctrine of correspondences, you can also get a sense of energies. Okay. That's a cemetery. What's its energy? What planet rules it? Okay, so if I want Saturnian energy, that's the place to go. This is a church. Theoretically, what energy rules it?
Solar.
Could be solar. What else? Jupiter.
Oh, yeah.
Jupiter rules churches, religious institutions. But this one will have a blend. This one right now is not very solar. It's extremely mercurial. The energy's been changed. It's actually gone down on the tree of life. Okay? The park over there. What? Mostly Venus, but Netzach, but also then we could use some zodiacal stuff. Taurus, some hills. But some of the other areas would be more rocky, so we'd have more with the rocks, some Capricorn, okay? Or some, the water is Pisces, right.
Aquarius.
So use that. Even this cemetery over here is a completely different feel because it's newer, it's open, and it's windy. Yeah, so there's more air over there, less trees. Okay?
Maybe the piece buried there had a more proper burial.
Well, they also do cremations over there, but it's a different type of energy. But it's still Saturn, so it's more Saturn and more kind of airy. Whereas this is Saturn, is much more earthy. This is very earthy. So you have to begin to look at the doctrine of correspondences for the elements and the planets and the signs and begin to recognize how are these energies around you. So Mars would be dealing with the military, dealing with emergency services of any kind. Your music would be Netzach, but also a bit of lunar in there because it's a fantasy, nightlife, you know. So you see how they begin to blend over. Mm-hmm. And what happens when it becomes too lunar? Then they crash out.
Yeah, it's just a lunatic fringe.
Well, they're just getting stoned and laid and don't go anywhere.
Could be mercurial.
Yeah. I mean, that's it.
Absolutely true.
Yeah.
Could be mercurial,
Mercurial too.
depending on the lyrics.
Right. Or the quality. Like some of the, like you know, Rush was a real mercurial.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, real mercurial.
Big time.
Yeah. Chocolate, Venus right off the bat. No question about it. Because it's luxury, it's good stuff, good feelings, you know. But then other parts of it come into play in terms of maybe Taurus. Yeah, a lot of the luxury. If you want to do like the high-end, the luxury stuff and, you know, that kind of quality. So like your restaurant, if you have a restaurant or a restaurant you go to, they all have a different feel. Okay? So you say, what is the feel? Yeah, get a sense of those energies. Well, you breathe them in while you're there. You don't even know it. You know, who was the great bank robber? What was his name? No, it goes, why do you rob the banks? He's in the 30s. Why do you rob banks? He goes, that's where the money is. Oh, come on.
Babyface.
Yeah, trying to think who he was.
Nelson.
Seal.
Not Nelson.
No, he was a gangster. This is a straight off bank robber. And he's kind of funny. He said, why do you rob banks? That's where the money is. Yeah. Well,
Bonnie and Clyde.
that's where, you know, you go to a bank, those are the Jupiterian energies. Mm-hmm. Universities, Jupiterian banks, they all have a quality to it, so you breathe in those energies while you're there. You know, if you want to attune yourself to a part of your energy quality, go where it is.
Makes sense.
You know? You go and you use the doctrine of correspondences to help you get there. And just as you breathe in those qualities here, you breathe in those. Now, Rigardi talks a great deal about that in his book, The Art of True Healing, which is the precursor to the middle pillar. I particularly like The Art of True Healing a great deal. I think there's very practical information in there and some useful stuff. But it deals with the middle pillar, which, by the way, you can use the middle pillar practice with this elemental breathing. But you have to make sure you breathe it into the center and still spread it out. Okay? And with that, stay strict to the elemental attributions. Don't do any of the spheres.
What kept me going this last year.
Pardon?
Doing the middle pillar really kept me going.
Yeah, it keeps the juices flowing. But even there, you have to make sure
Cleansed me too when things were rough.
you got to do the circulations, because as you're moving this energy, you don't want it to get stuck. A lot of people, they get with
The after effect of going around in the front and the back and spiraling around at the end, I think
that's actually more important in many ways than the first part, because if you just do it and you leave it there, a lot of people they clog. It's like a drain, they just clog up. So you want it luminous and light and flowing. Remember, the energy seeks to move. The life energy is constantly moving. When it's not moving, it coalesces around a point. We call that individuation, and that's what we are, the energy that coalesces around a point like a tornado, okay, or like a whirlpool. Okay, but then if it stops to move, then it just falls apart and it's death. So we got to keep the energies moving.
Interesting. Yeah,
Well, that's
no,
when,
that
when
makes-
Brian first taught us that, one of the things we were having issues with was that doing that out of the outer ring.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that's really what makes me feel best once I get to that part.
Yeah, because you're pushing it out there.
Pushing it out farther.
You're keeping it, yeah, you're not letting it collapse in. You got to push it out to the maximum, to the right distance. Now, people always ask, what are we supposed to do? What can we do for a practice? I want to study magic. I like the Golden Dawn, or I like Regardie, but I don't know what to do. And Regardie has a lot of great stuff. Of course, almost everything has been built off of it in many ways, in some ways confusing the matter considerably. And then, of course, as you know, people then read it and they want to get involved in a group. And they find that a lot of this group work is not always what it's cut out to be. It's very unfortunate. It's very disheartening and discouraging, and there's no two ways around that. It just is what it is. But that is the nature of the time and place in which we live. And we often don't look at what we do philosophically in that respect. According to the classical teachings, we live in the Kali Yuga, the age of iron, the age of death and destruction, and that this is the age of lead. You see the different ages or cycles mentioned in the alchemical manuscripts, particularly with the notion of the Golden Age. And then, of course, there's the Silver Age, the Age of Bronze, and the current age, the Kali Yuga. Some different schools have different views on it. Some say that the Kali Yuga is coming to a close. One would almost think it is, based upon what goes on in the world. Others say that it will not end for another 400 years. Some say it won't even end then. It's just a sub-cycle, but at least there'll be a respite or a reprieve. The hallmark of the Kali Yuga is a certain roughness, crudeness, vulgarity, meanness to people. In fact, the ritual practices which we undertake and the meditative practices, the alchemical practices, are suitable only for the Kali Yuga. The reason being is that in the Golden Age, one merely thought something and it occurred. This is the Edenic state. If one were to look at scriptures, this would be Eden. You thought it and it was. It's an archetypal world, if we use the worlds of Kabbalah, the four worlds. In the Silver Age, one thought it, but maybe had to do a little more. So prayers were said, or mantras. From here we see the arising of the nature of mantra, or angelic languages and tongues, which have a particular affinity to the psychic nervous system and the bodies of air, by the way. In the Bronze Age, that was not sufficient, and we saw the formation of cults and temples, rites of practice, sacrifice. But in the Kali Yuga, that is in the age of death and lead, of iron, we see that very hard physical work is required. The bodily sensation must be arisen. If I don't get a rush out of it, it simply didn't happen. And in a way that's true. I've often asked you here, what was the sensation? And you described it in very physiological terms because it was within the body itself, because it's within the body that we're so used to experiencing this world. And that's okay. That's just the way it is. And that's important to note because in some ways people say, well, why is it that, I do all these prayers and I do all these meditations, but nothing seems to change? Well, maybe because it's not really suited for your makeup. It's not suited for where you're at. That it's too abstract. There's ways to be too concrete as well, but at the same time, we have to find what is appropriate for our time and place of practice. But with the Kali Yuga, with this age, comes an argumentativeness. People are very easily argumentative. We have to be very careful about that. We see that in today's world, you know. We see that in day-to-day life. So we have to cultivate, you know, those energies which are the opposite of that, which is patience, generosity, kindness, compassion. And yet, how often do we see that mentioned in magical works? Well, if you've read the Arbitel of Magic, it's listed in there, but most people don't read the Arbitel. They pass over it. And since they're probably not reading any scriptures other than a few handful of magical books, they rarely come across it, if at all. It's mentioned in passing often, but people view that as a footnote rather than as a preamble. So these groups, people come into them, and we see what happens. And magic in particular, because of its nature, as I said, these practices strengthen our psychic makeup. Therefore, if your psychic makeup is one that you have not addressed your own selfishness, pettiness, vulgarity, crudeness, argumentativeness, or fill in the blank, whatever negative function may be going on, and you haven't addressed it and tried to rectify it or understand, well, why is it there? What does this serve? What does this serve, and how can I change it? Now, it's not always enough just to say I don't want to do it anymore, because that's not enough. That doesn't bring us understanding. Say, okay, well, why am I acting this way, or thinking this way, or feeling this way? Say, okay, well, that's why, and okay, I don't have to do it. I can do this instead. But that takes work, doesn't it? That takes some serious effort and self-reflection. I don't want to do that. That's why I came to magic. I want magic, just wave my wand and trace my pentagrams and everything go away. Well, that'll happen too. A lot of things do go away. You know, but it happens hard. You know? Because we're dealing with causes, not effects. When we deal with energy, we're dealing with cause, not effect. When we deal with mind, we're dealing with cause, not effect. Now, as a preliminary to the magical work, Israel Regardie wrote a wonderful book called The 12 Steps to Spiritual Enlightenment, also known as the One-Year Manual. Now, for those of you who have some experience in meditation, you could do the One-Year Manual in about 3 to 6 months, maybe 9 months. You don't have to spend a full year on it, because some of the chapters can be condensed into a single month with, you know, the whole breathing, relaxation, that meditation thing. That can be not 3 months. That's one. You can just put that on. So it has a wonderful, wonderful key. Very simple, very direct. And what it does is it addresses what? The 4 cycles of the day with the 4 adorations. And this is what we had said earlier about developing a rhythm, a regular rhythm to inculcate ideas into your mind and into your daily practice. It's not enough that you think them. You have to do something that goes along with them to break the rhythm of the day, to break the rhythm of habituated action. That's what we're doing with all this work, is we're trying to break the rhythm of habituated action and form new habits. New habits based upon a broader, fuller, more embracing vision of the cosmos and our place in it. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean a more pleasant one or a more politically correct one. The cosmos doesn't care any about that. Not a thing. It doesn't matter to it. Your visions are right and wrong, truth and justice. Most of what goes on in this place. The universe doesn't care one iota about those nice ideas. Okay? So that's why magic can also be hard. And some of that hardness can turn into pathology. Just as hardness in daily and any other aspect of life turns into pathology. And here the pathology can be feeling special. I have found the truth and I am special. Well, when you found the truth and you're special, now you need people to hear you that you found the truth. And that's where a lot of occult lodges and mystical lodges go south. So some people say, but how can I avoid that? I want to learn, I want to study, what can I do? Well, you can come here and come to teachings like this of small groups. I mean, this is financially not worth my while to hold. It takes me a week to put this on. It isn't worth it. Yeah. What? Well, that's okay. But, but then say, well, what do you do it for? Well, because I know you guys are actually going to go out and do this. There's a chance that at least half of you, possibly all of you, are going to do this.
This is your God's work.
It's not my God's work. This is my work.
This is your work.
This is my work. This is my God's work. Unless I am my God, then it's my God's work.
Okay.
My work. I choose to do it. It's okay. So it's the motivation. The motivation is that it'll help you. But then the other motivation is that if it helps you, maybe you'll help someone else. And then, should I be fortunate enough to return to this planet, there'll be someone there to help me. Because if I don't do that, there's no guarantee. In fact, if I don't do it, there's still no, even if I do it, there's still no guarantee. But let me tell you, if I don't do it, I have no right
To expect.
See, in fact, you have no rights. Rights is a human construct. You have none. You have obligations and duties. And when you fulfill those, then you have prerogatives. But rights, that's something people make up when they finally have enough income and when their bellies are full and they're safe. Nature, which is what magic is about your obligations and your duties. And then the prerogatives you can pick from that. That's a hard reality. That's why we said the only law in the universe is karma, cause and effect. If this, then that. Nothing else. Everything else is just a way of us to explain that to one another so that we make the right decision. Well, really, it'd be a really good idea if, you set aside a day for prayer and worship. You really meant that by not, taking the name of your God in vain. You didn't create these false ideals and particularly images to go with them. And you didn't murder your friends or steal their stuff or lie about them. And because we know people are stupid, we're going to put that in stone because they're going to forget if we don't. And you can do that, and you can do that against the Code of Hammurabi, or you can do that against the 42 Confessions of Mott, or you can do that against any legal system or moral and ethical system put out there. But all that is just a way of explaining karma. If this, then that. Okay? So, if we take a time out of our day to break our habits, we can form new habits. If we take time to practice, then we have a chance of making progress in this work. If we take time to relax, then we can learn how to enter into meditation. If we learn to control our breath, we can learn to control our mind and begin to realize what is really going on inside this 10 pounds or whatever it is of stuff we got up there. Mostly fat, I understand. Yeah, good. Another reason to eat French fries and Haagen-Dazs, you see. It's brain food, Really. If I take time to pray, then I can reprogram this computer of mine. And if I pray with the right attitude of devotion and understanding, and not just for myself alone, but for others, realizing that they may not care, and that's okay. See, one of the problems that people get into is they want to help others, and then when they realize, the hardest part is realizing that others don't really want to be helped.
It's true.
Yeah, especially when we were talking earlier at lunch about ghosts and stuff. I mean, this last year I got 3 calls from investigators about very serious cases of possession in which extreme violence was occurring, They said that we can't do anything. I said, well, there's not much I can do if the family members aren't going to step up. And I said, so someone will end up dead, and Antipsychotic meds are going to get prescribed, and life is going to go on. But, can't do anything if you don't want to change your habit. This is going to continue. So this is going to go away. This is going to be back. And that's the reality. People who get in that situation like the attention it brings, so they don't want to get rid of it. And how is it any different than most drug and alcohol addiction? I was an addictions counselor for years. I don't stop till they're at bottom. Because then you have a choice. I either stop or I die. But until you're left with, no choices, you don't stop. Same with most things. Because we're creatures of habit, and those habits fulfill a function. And the function can be a pleasure function. It can be a way of, of just, getting through the day function. But, function, when we create our habits in magic, we want them to be helpful habits. See, we naturally do that, so we have to take a good hard look at ourselves. Why do I do what I do? And that's what, happens. You say stuff pops up in meditation. Well, that's what pops up. That's why it becomes unpleasant in the beginning. All this anxiety from the day is spinning. And you have to learn either to let it go or figure it out. Those are the only choices. Because if you either let it go, and it eventually goes away after ramping up, or you figure it out, you trace it back to where it came from and you get okay with it. But if you don't do that, it just makes you nuts and then you walk away. Well, bingo! Habit mind won. The demiurge has won. The demiurge won. Enlightened mind 0. Doesn't matter. Enlightened mind says, I got all the time in the world. And the demiurge says, I'm nothing but time. It doesn't matter. It's all the same.